Hello, my name is Nana Acheampong. This presentation focuses on the evaluation of two articles on the topic of servant leadership presented in the studies by Melka and Bosco 2010 and Paris and Peachy 2013. To enhance the discussion, this presentation also highlights a comparative analysis of the two studies to determine the quality of evidence. The emphasis on the comparison is to identify the study whose findings are based on quality evidence and can also successfully guide the incoming CEO and management response to the uncertainties that go with leadership change. The framework for this topic appraisal will be Evaluating Research in Academic Journal, a practical guide to realistic evaluation, chapters 8 to 13, Prizer 2013, and Hollard and Rees, Nursing, a framework for critiquing quantitative research articles, 2010. The evaluation will be based on three broad themes, namely research design, internal validity, and external validity. The servant leadership theory coined by Robert Greenleaf, 1970, assumes a contemporary approach to leadership through its emphasis on effective leadership, which promotes an organizational culture that fosters collective and collaborative follower participation, follower learning, and greater follower empowerment. Russell and Stone, 2004, Covey, 2006. The first article evaluation is Melka and Bosco's article titled Achieving High Organization Performance Through Servant Leadership. Melka and Bosco's article is a descriptive study that examines whether the incorporation of servant leadership creates an organizational culture that attracts or develops other servant leaders, page 75. The researchers failed to acknowledge the type of research design used. However, they mentioned the use of Barbuto and Wheeler's servant leadership questionnaire, thereby giving an indication that the survey method was used. The audience attention is also called to the inherent weakness of a survey design, which is its inability to provide data that shows a causal relationship between variables. Concerning causality, the researcher's choice of study design makes it difficult to determine causality. The conclusion that the modeling of servant leadership behaviors by strategic level managers can create an organizational culture in which servant leaders develop among lower level managers is an invalid causal conclusion because, unlike experimental research designs whose high internal validity ensures the determination of causation, descriptive research designs by virtue of their low internal validity makes the establishment of causation challenging. In a sense, the researchers failed to make connections between the research design and conclusions drawn. Though there was no direct cause-effect relationship established by the evidence presented, there was an attempt by the researchers to establish some form of correlational relationship between the servant leader culture promoted by top managers and the display of servant leader characteristics by mid-managers. Melka and Bosco, page 84. Melka and Bosco failed, however, to explain the nature of the relationship and the variables that cause that relationship. This relationship could be attributed to the presence of a third variable such as positive organizational culture. With respect to internal validity, data collecting procedures such as the qualitative interviews cause bias resulting from uncontrolled variation in information given by the respondents. Stern and Kaloff, 1996, page 88. More so, the exclusion of the data of the managerial servant leader questionnaire due to low response rate constitutes a non-response rate bias which can threaten the study's internal validity. The researchers failed to mention the control of the threats. Concerning sampling, Melka and Bosco applied the best scientific research guidelines by not only seeking the approval of the University Review Board prior to the study, but also seeking the approval of the study's participants through the informed consent. Page 81. The use of stratified sampling is appropriate as it makes it easier for researchers to identify enough people in the population who have the desired characteristics, then randomly select a sample of them. A merit of using the stratified sampling is its ability to represent the entire target population and significant subgroups. However, this type of sampling raises potential selection bias concerns as a result of the sampling criteria. Concerning the composition of the sample, the random selection of only 3 top-performing dealerships and 91% male subjects constitute a systematic error which adversely impact the validity of measurement and consequently undermine the quality of the findings. The homogeneity of the sample undermines the external validity of the study. Customer and sales service are broad constructs that cut across every industry, and so by limiting the study to a narrowly single sector like the automobile dealership makes it difficult, if not impossible, to generalize the study's results to a larger population of interest. Another notable flaw is the small sample size, which makes it difficult to draw inferences from the data sample. The low response rate of 27% constitutes a response bias which poses a threat to the quality of the study. It goes without saying, therefore, that Melker and Bosco mostly followed worse research practices which adversely impact the quality of their study. The alternative article is by Paris and Peachy, and it is titled A Systematic Literature Review of the Servant Leadership Theory in Organizational Context. Paris and Peachy, 2013, conducted a systematic review of the topic Servant Leadership in Organizational Context. The researchers did not only mention the research design used, they also described and provided a rationale for its use. Page 380. The rigorous process of article selection and appraisal to reduce bias rendered the study replicable. In the conclusion section of the study, the researchers effectively highlighted the questions that guided the servant-leader relationship. That is, definition of servant leadership, the contextual empirical investigation of servant leadership relationship, among others. Based on the synthesis of evidence on the research themes, the researchers drew the conclusion based on the themes. The study's results validated servant leadership as a viable and valuable theory because servant leadership creates a trusting, fair, collaborative, and helping culture that can result in greater individual and organizational effectiveness. Though the evidence presented did not explicitly establish cause and effect relationship between servant leadership and a positive culture, systematic reviews by their nature are able to address questions relating to effectiveness and causation. Pettigrew and Roberts, 2008, page 10. In a way, the researchers were able to establish a causal relationship between servant leader and positive individual and organizational outcomes based on the 7 main research themes. See Table 3, page 384 to 385. With respect to external validity, 2 of the main aspects of systematic reviews are the systematic selection and appraisal of studies. Study selection is very extensive and rigorous because studies selected should relate to the research problem. A rigorous inclusion and exclusion selection criteria yielded 39 studies out of 381 articles initially searched. Sample composition comprised 27 quantitative studies and 11 qualitative studies and 1 mixed method. See Table 1, page 382. The variance in sample characteristics raise an issue of heterogeneity which undermines the external validity of the study's findings. Certain aspects of the sampling raise potential sampling biases. Linguistic constraints imposed by the exclusion of non-English studies, source selection bias resulting from the researchers limiting their search only to certain databases, and publication bias arising from excluding non-indexed journals or dissertations and non-peer-reviewed articles all work to undermine the generalizability of the results. Paris and Peachy appropriately used the matrix method and explained why they used the method. However, they failed to mention its reliability. For the purpose of quality assessment of the individual studies, the researchers used appraisal tools by Letts et al. 2007, Institute for Public Health Sciences 2007, and Stoltz et al. 2004. The use of these appraisal tools was appropriate as they are specifically designed to assess the quantitative, and both qualitative and quantitative studies respectively. Though the researchers provided a rationale for using these appraisal tools, Paris and Peachy 2013, page 381, they failed to provide an empirical basis for their use. The researchers also failed to mention the empirical basis of these appraisal tools to support the reliability of these tools. The researchers effectively presented a cogent description of how the various studies were assessed and their quality rated. See Table 2, page 382. The quality assessment was also based on the theoretical frameworks on the servant leadership by Spears, 1988, Patterson, 2003, and other researchers, page 386. The researchers' use of the matrix method in information retrieval from the individual studies, coupled with a rigorous quality assessment process, ensure a conscious reduction of bias from the study, thereby preserving the internal validity of the study. With respect to the control of threat, researcher-induced errors such as linguistic constraints, source selection bias, and temporal bias were neutralized by stringent quality assessment and synthesis of the study's evidence. See Table 3, page 384. Based on a successful synthesis of empirical studies, the researchers provided sound and logical conclusions which were guided by the 4 research questions. In a sense, the data supported the researchers' conclusions. With respect to validity of content, the heterogeneity inherent in the study poses a threat to the content validity of the study. The variances in research designs, measurement scales, and thematic topics undermine the internal validity of the study. However, by utilizing a rigorous appraisal appraisal criteria, the researchers were able to mitigate the bias imposed by heterogeneity of data. Comparative analysis of the 2 studies. An evaluative analysis of the 2 studies is done based on the 3 broad themes: research design, external validity, and internal validity. This provides the basis of final recommendations for Brookshire Industries management decision and action. A careful examination of Melker and Bosco's study revealed that they were able to advise their position on the topic, but there seemed to be an incoherent flow of thought from the introduction through hypothesis formation to data analysis and conclusion. This lack of clarity and incoherence not only hampered the ability of the audience to appreciate the researcher's knowledge in the subject matter, but also the audience's confidence in the study's conclusion. With respect to the research design, The use of the descriptive study design was appropriate as it reflected the purpose of the study. However, the audience attention is called to the low quality of evidence of descriptive studies in the hierarchy of evidence, Bose and Ashby, 2003. Thus, the low ranking of descriptive studies in the hierarchy of evidence pyramid undermines the quality of evidence in this study. The choice of the design also informed the choice of statistical data analysis method used. Therefore, with descriptive analysis, the researchers were unable to establish a causal relationship between organizational outcomes and servant leadership. The inability to establish causation also dented the internal validity of the study, since causation and internal validity are connected. The internal validity of the study was further weakened by the use of unreliable measures. Furthermore, the incidence of sampling biases seriously undermined the generalizability of the study's results. Melker and Bosco have made contributions to existing empirical literature. However, this study does not meet the standard of a quality research work because it lacks methodological rigor. With respect to the study of Paris and Peachy, 2013, from a scholarly viewpoint, there is a clear connectivity of thought between the purpose, methodology, and conclusion. This is evidenced by the coherent presentation of the theoretical and empirical background of the servant leadership theory. Paris and Peachy also presented a seamless flow of thought from the research questions through data analysis to conclusion. Notwithstanding the limitations of the study, the inherent merit of systematic literature review in evidence-based practice, the aggregate reliability of the data collecting instruments such as the matrix and other appraisal tools ensure the replicability of the study's results and by extension credibility in the findings of the study. Pettigrew and Roberts, 2008, page 12. Paris and Peachy have contributed immensely to extant empirical literature and knowledge. The study possesses methodological rigor and it is useful for literacy, citation, and relevant for practice. The conclusions of this study have implications for management practitioners in general and organizations such as Brookshire Industries in particular undergoing leadership changes. The conclusion should serve as a benchmark for every organization undergoing structural and human resource changes. In view of the above comparative analysis, it is fair to state that the findings in the incoming CEO's article about servant leadership are not for practice because they do not meet the standards of a quality research work by reason of the inherent biases which ultimately undermine the confidence and credibility of the study's findings. On the other hand, the findings of Paris and Peach's study, by virtue of its intellectual and methodological rigor, are credible due to a systematic and rigorous data collection procedure, replicable, dependable due to the methods of data collection, analysis, and interpretation, and conformable due to the use of peer review. The study therefore meets research study quality standards, and so its findings are fit for purpose and practice. Recommendations. The managerial implications of the evidence presented is that for organizations to promote the well-being of its employees and boost their performance, employers and management should take steps to create a positive and strong organizational culture that encourages follower growth. Management is therefore recommended to promote an organizational culture that encourages employee participation in decision-making, open communication, organizational learning, and employee empowerment. Thank you very much.